Well, hello. So this series of videos is about how to write web pages. If you read these two web tutorials, the shortest web tutorials in the world, you will know everything there is to know about how to write simple web pages. And these videos will just go through the same details, but will be illustrated by doing. This slide shows you the essence of HTML. So besides being a little bit funny, it tells you how HTML is written. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So just like you see here, the title of the book is HTML for Babies. But according to the HTML itself, since this is the title of the book, it is marked up with a tag called title at the beginning of the actual title, and the end of the title is marked up with the tag /title. So this means that this is the end of the title. Whatever is in between the title tag and the /title tag is the title of the book. As we're going to see, something similar will happen in HTML. We're going to have a title of the page. On the other hand, this HTML we're going to be learning is very simple HTML written by hand in a text editor. This is not how web pages are written today. They are written in a very complicated way with scripts and with data feeds. But the concepts you're going to learn in these videos are going to be applicable, and they're going to help you actually use the more complicated tools for writing HTML pages in the future. So let me give you an example of what a web page looks like. And you're going to see that there are two aspects to it. We have here in Firefox, which I advise you to use because it is the most honest of the web browsers. We have the web page of the New York Times. This is how it looks like. Now, if you are in Firefox and you press either Ctrl-U on a Windows PC or Command-U on a Mac, you're going to see what is behind this web page. This is what is behind the web page. So this is much more complicated than what we're going to actually do, but we have to be able to write something kind of like this in order to obtain something like this. So this is not WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. What we're going to do is to learn a language, a new language, with only 14 words. As you're going to see, we're going to learn, for example, this, which is not actually part of the HTML, but out of the HTML tags, we're going to learn this tag, this tag, this tag, this tag. So we're going to learn a new language, the HTML language, with just 14 words. We have to understand what those words mean and how they are used in that language. So what we need to do is to create a folder which will be exclusively for the web project. The point being that we're building a website in here, in this folder, and if we have the opportunity to actually export all this to a real server, all I need to do is to take all these files that are here and upload them on the server. After doing that, the website becomes public and everybody can see it. What you notice in this folder is that all the files have the complete names, including the file extensions. If you don't do this, this could be a pretty bad reason for being confused. So I do advise you to make sure that on your computer, when you're working on this, you can see all the file extensions. Next, the most important thing is that within all these files, there is one which is the most important, this index.html. This will be your central web page. So if your name is John Doe and you go to johndoe.org, the actual file that is going to be showed is the index.html, which is in the John Doe website. Also, you have to notice that each file has the correct extension. This bracelet.jpg or this dolphin.jpg are both JPEG files, pictures. Index.html is actually an HTML file, so a web page. This tux.png is also an image, but it is in a different format. It is a PNG format. And this is another web page. HTML is a web page. So when you have pictures to put in a web page, all you need to do is to take the pictures and copy them in that folder. But how do you write web pages? Since the web pages are plain text files, on Windows, the simplest tool to be used is the old and trusted Notepad. On Macs, the best choice probably is the TextEdit. But in TextEdit, as you can see here, we have to make sure we do some settings because TextEdit is a more complicated editor. You can also do rich text. So first, you have to make sure that this plain text is checked in the preferences of TextEdit. And you have to make sure that none of these boxes is checked because these boxes are doing stuff which is good for Word documents, for stuff that is actually going to look right, not for plain text like we are doing right now. And then, also in the preferences of TextEdit, you have to make sure that this box is checked, because if this is not checked properly, we are going to have a big mess. We're trying to write HTML, but then the computer is writing its own HTML on top of our HTML. So it's going to be very complicated. There are no settings that you have to do on Notepad on Windows, because that is just a very, very old plain text editor. But you have to do these settings in the preferences of your TextEdit on Macs. If you are using a Unix machine or a Linux machine, any plain text editor is going to do just fine. So now, once you are done with the technicalities, let's get to the real world. What you have in here is the simplest web page you can write, which is not quite legal yet, but it works. So this is just the start. What do we notice? The first line here is the file declaration. So you know so far that every file is determined by the extension of the name to see if it's an HTML, it's a web page, if it's an MP3, it's a sound file, and so on. Well, that is the truth, but it is not the whole truth. Each of these files have a header at the start, which tells exactly what version of the protocol should be used to open that file. In our case, this declaration in between angle brackets that starts with an exclamation mark and then it says doc type HTML declares this file as being a web page, an HTML file. Well, we knew that because we are supposed to call this file something.html to make sure that the computers understand it is a web page. But the extra information given by this extra header is that this is version 5 of the HTML protocols. So your file should start like this, but we're not into the HTML yet. HTML starts with this tag. So this tag says, here starts the web page. And like most of the tags that we're going to encounter, it has a closing tag, which is exactly the same thing, but starts with a slash. So this says, this is where the web page ends. To put it simple, everything from here to here is a web page. So, for example, you could put stuff following this, like this, but that's not going to be considered a part of the web page, although the browser is still going to show it. So the first word in this language you learned is the word HTML. Here are the other two words, head. So besides the technical header we talked about in the beginning, every web page is supposed to have a header. Right now, there is nothing in our header. So the header goes between head and slash head. What we're going to put in there is the title of the web page, which is required by the version of the HTML5 protocol. Some other technical information will go in there, but this is a little bit beyond our purpose. And then the big thing, the body. The body of the web page starts with a tag called body and ends with the tag slash body. What this says is that everything that's in between here and there is the web page, and that is supposed to be displayed. What you also have to know is that white space doesn't count. So, for example, these empty lines here, they don't matter. If I do here a lot of blank spaces, those don't matter. So how do we format the text? Well, we're going to see that in a little bit. So for now, the best thing you can do is to try to practice this yourself. What you should do is to write a web page like this. Traditionally, for hundreds of years since programming languages have been invented, when somebody's learning a new language, this is the first thing they are supposed to write something that actually prints hello world. So try to do this, write this in your text editor, either in Notepad or in TextEdit, and save it in that folder that you reserved for your project. Give it the name index.html, all in lowercase. No questions asked. It's supposed to be index.html, all in lowercase. So save it there, and then just go double click on it. If you did a good job, you should obtain a web page which opens in your default browser and which only says hello world. And that is how we did the first step in our writing pages, and you wrote your very, very first web page, the famous hello world.